we promised you guys some follow-up. Today I'm here to deliver. I know there's a ton of E36s in the drifting community, but this one tends to stick out now that I've made some changes to it. I think most notably, and the first thing people tend to notice is the StreetFigther LA wide body kit. It's super wide, it's a full fiberglass kit, and it's actually installed on this car with rib nuts and stainless steel hardware. Take the bolts out, take the panel off, and fix whatever you need to if you get some damage, like I did the other weekend at Killcare Speedway. Up front we have 3-inch longer control arms to actually fill out this massive kit. But front wider, super rear, it looks awesome. Everyone loves it. I love it. The other thing that makes this car look unique is the wrap. The front fenders and rear fenders are all wrapped, and it matches surprisingly well to the hood. So people can't even tell that it's wrap fender and then paint on the hood or on the door. So anytime I get some damage, I can just take the panel off, replace it, whatever, rewrap it, and I'm good to go. Just bolt the new piece back on. We have the Falcon Tire inspired livery going on here. I stuck with the black and gold theme like I had before. All the sponsor logos make it look like a real race car, and it's ready to drift. So if we look at the wheel and tire setup, up front I'm running a Alzor 040 and an 18x8. It has a Kenda KR20, 180 tread wear, pretty grippy tire up front, keep the front end planted around the track. I'm running 0 spacer up front, but we have the IRP angle kit with the extended control arms, really pushing it out to the edge of the fender here. So no spacer allows me to keep the arc of the wheel when it's turning nice and tight. If you're running a bunch of spacer, it's gonna increase that arc and your tire's just gonna run into your fender, it's gonna run into your wheel well, and if you're on track and you hit that and your tire locks up, you're probably just gonna spin. So no spacers up front for that reason. But if we go to the back, I'm running the same wheels. It's an Alzor 040, but in an 18x10 instead of the 18x8 up front. And wrapped around that, we have a Ironman iMove Gen 2 all-season tire and a 235/40/18. The width and the grip of the all-season are a nice balance between having too much grip, being too fast around the track, and being able to slide and kind of dial in your speed. And that really helps with doing tandem runs. There's a bunch of different cars out there that have different kinds of setups, different speeds around the track. Some are slow, some are fast. So it's a nice balance between the two. The tires wear really well. They run all the way down to the cords. They don't chunk or anything. So even with an 18x10 inch wheel, we had to run 175 millimeters spacer to get the wheel out to the wide body. The 150 millimeters of that spacer is bolt on, which as far as the hub's concerned, isn't really any different than running a super low offset wheel. So we put that on, and then we have a additional 25 millimeter spacer to kind of bring it out, make it look nice. Hood finally opens by itself, holds itself up. Spent the money on $20, $30 on hood struts, so I no longer have to hold that up while I'm trying to check the oil or whatever. So obviously the biggest change of the car this year has been the Supercharger kit. This is the Active Autowerke Level 1 Supercharger kit. So normally it just takes the output of the supercharger and goes straight into the intake manifold. But as I mentioned before, I added an intercooler to that kit because I knew I was gonna be sitting at high RPMs, sitting at rev limiter on the track. To mount the intercooler, custom bracket up there, that also supports the Supercharger oil cooler. So kind of combined everything up there. We got a whole stack of coolers up front. The only other thing that I tweaked on the kit was I added an ECS Tuning catch can. Goes straight from the valve cover, pulls vacuum with the intake, and the drain of the catch can actually goes down to the dipstick tube. So it's self-draining, self-regulating system. As far as engine internals go, the only thing I had to do was add ARP head studs, which on this engine could be a fairly involved process. Well, you can't install head studs without taking out the cam trays because they get in the way of the nuts that go on the studs. So valve cover off, cams came out. I had to pull all the timing stuff apart to do that. Gotta be careful with the cams because if you loosen cam caps in the wrong order, you can actually break your cam. With such a long span of length from the front to the back of the motor that if you put stress on the cam in the wrong position, just can break right off next to a load. So did that successfully, filled the engine up with some fresh Liqui Moly, and ever since then we've had no real motor issues. There was a slight issue at first with the tune, but Active Autowerke quickly responded to that. We had a soft limit at 5,000 RPM the first time I took the car out, and it just turned out to be because it was referencing a wheel speed, and this car no longer has ABS, traction control, or wheel speed sensors in it. So once we figured that out, we hit the dyno. The car produced 60 more horsepower, made about 189 horsepower pre-supercharger, and it made 252 afterwards. Pretty big bump. 60 horsepower isn't anything to laugh at, especially when you consider how much it made before. Active Autowerke does offer a smaller pulley that I might be switching to in the future. So the level 1 kit just comes with the upgraded injectors, where the level 2 kit with a smaller pulley comes with even larger injectors, a fuel pump upgrade, and also a bigger intercooler. So the only other notable change to the engine itself is the eBay headers I put on. It was a little bit difficult to install. Just had to make some small tweaks around the engine mount arm, but they're on, and it gives the car a pretty unique sound. So from the underside, you can kind of see how I routed the intercooler piping. This guy coming straight down from the supercharger, looping around to the intercooler. There's the bracket for it, and then straight right up to the throttle body right next to the frame rail. Right behind that, we have a Z3 steering rack. I changed mine out because it started to leak internally a little bit, and I didn't want any fluids coming down the bottom of the car, and I figured might as well upgrade. So Z3 rack is a factory bolt up to any E36, and it has a quicker ratio steering, so you're gonna get less turns of the wheel to full lock. We also can see now the IRP kit in full detail. So we have spherical bearings everywhere, your lollipops or your caster adjustment, your spherical bearing on your subframe mount here, the extended tie rods, and you can see how much angle it really provides, and there's no binding or anything. The wheels spin freely. A little tiny bit of rubbing on the inside of the control arm, but nothing major, just a quick contact, so your wheels aren't gonna lock up at full lock. What I had before was the E46 control arm kit, so basically just stock E46 aluminum arms, and then a roll center correction or drift angle relocation for your outer tie rod. And that gets you a little bit more angle, but the control arm's so big that you run out of space on the inside, so your tire is eventually gonna hit the inside of the control arm. With this kit, we don't have that problem. It brings it super far back, away from the wheel, and also just, you can turn so much more. So that paired with the longer arm overall just gives you a great setup. So moving back even further, we have the V-bands that I actually cut off the ends of the eBay headers and added V-bands from our newly released ECS custom stainless, whatever you want to call it, exhaust program. So basically we have 2.5 inch and 3 inch straights, bends, and you can just make whatever you want. It's full stainless, so everything in the exhaust system is custom made. It's all stainless, it's all welded by me. We did, from the headers, we did a merge into a 3 inch, and here we went with a Borla XS muffler. This is just straight 3 inch, 3 out, with a perforated core center and steel wool packed muffler around it. We have our O2 bung up over here for the AFR gauge. From the muffler or resonator back, everything is just 3 inch straight pipe. Gotta put another V-band in here just to make things easy to remove from the axle back in case I need to change an axle or something on the track. Other than that, back here I haven't really changed much since you last saw it. Filled up the diff with some fresh Liqui Moly. Something I would like to do in the future is change out my diff for a 3.91. Right now I have a 3.46, and I'm kind of like in a weird middle ground between having too much RPM in second gear and not enough speed. So I need like a little bit more RPM range, and I could put it in third and not have any issues. But right now, second gear is kind of limited. So looking for that. If anyone has a hookup, let me know. So this is the Chase Bay's dual caliper rear kit. It utilizes the E36 M3 brake rotors and calipers for your regular brakes. And then it comes with a Wilwood 4-piston brake with a bracket on the backside specifically for the handbrake that actually bolts right up to where the heat shield used to go. So you take the heat shield off and you got 3 locations in the back where it mounts up. They have lines they offer it with. I chose to make my own, and so far it's been great. Locks up super easy. Once you get things bled with the 4 pistons, you barely have to move the handle, and leverage is great. Works great all the time. So on the interior, made a couple updates. nothing major, but we got rid of the mismatched seats. I put in a pair of Momo start seats, a little bit more supportive, and to get them where I wanted, I used some of the tools we have here at work. At ECS, I am a design engineer. We have a Faro laser line scanner that allowed me to scan the seat, scan the cockpit where I wanted to put the seat, locate it in a place that I thought was going to be pretty close to where I wanted to put it. And then from there, I could combine all the data, design brackets out of sheet metal, take the designed parts and print them out in a 1-to-1 paper so I could just trace it out on sheet metal, cut it and bend it, put it in the car, and I basically ballpark exactly where I want to put the seat. I also changed over to a 6-point cam lock Stroth harness from my old harnesses that were a Lincoln lock. It's way easier to just clip everything in and just have this quick release on there. So big improvement on that. The next big thing on the interior is we added this nice CNC gold handbrake. We went to a single reservoir instead of tapping into our rear brake lines like I used to have it. It's mounted a little bit more rigid than Foz's. And then right behind that we have the Turner shifter. It's got the rally shifter on it, which is super long. Keeps a knob up near the steering wheel, right near the handbrake, so everything's really accessible. You can adjust it to basically get a bunch of leverage, and it's nice and crisp, keeps things shifting when you want them to. On the floor of the cockpit, we have this nice Redline pedal set. It's covered in rubber bumps to keep your feet planted real nice so you don't miss a shift when you're sliding around. Behind that, we have the Momo steering wheel. I used to have a floppy used wheel. This is way stiffer, way better. And then right up front, we have the Pro Sport gauges. So I added AFR and boost now that we have the Supercharger, which is important to keep an eye on that stuff. We also still have water temp, and I've labeled my party lights, which is really important, obviously. All right, guys, that pretty much sums up everything I've done to my E36 this year. If you want to see more content like this, please like and subscribe, and check out our other Drift Series videos.